Hello everyone, and welcome back to Skyrim, where today we'll be figuring out if we can beat Skyrim using only items that we found in caves. The rules are basically what they sound like on the tin. No non-quest item that we find can be used unless we found it in a cave. That means no spells, weapons, armor, ingredients, or consumables unless we got them by going spelunking. I'm also dedicated to doing no research for this video besides the one fact that I'm about to quote at you, since there are an awful lot of caves in Skyrim, over 60, and that's not including any that may or may not have been added in the Anniversary Edition, so I thought it'd be more fun to let this run unfold organically and just see what we get. Keep that in mind when I don't go into the one cave that has that item you're thinking I should get for the run, but do feel free to let me know what I missed in the comments. With all that in mind, let's get into it. First up is character creation, and once again, we're going to be a member of the Argonian master race. Not only are our maids lusty and our resistance to disease inspiring, but Argonians have the ability to breathe underwater, and since there's a very mild spelunking theme happening here, Argonian seems to be the best choice. Our racial power also doesn't factor here at all, since we don't get it in a cave. We play through the intro as normal, picking up only the mandatory key, and also not attacking anything because unless we were born in one, we didn't get our fists in a cave either. Once we're out and in the game proper, we activate the Warrior Stone because it feels like weapons and armor are going to be far more plentiful than magic, and it's also quicker to level up than sneak. We can change our minds later if we want to abuse the Greybeards like we did in the last Skyrim video, but probably not. The next thing we do is just pick a direction and walk, since we don't have any items yet, and we may as well get things rolling on that front before we get to Whiterun. First up is the Brood Cave, and while we're almost murdered by the wolves who live here, we managed to pick up some items and food from the last guy they killed and use them to fend them off just before we shuffle off its mortal coil. We do eat up all the food in the scuffle, but we come away with some hide armor and an iron dagger, so we're at least a little bit protected and can legally attack things now. The next cave we stumble across is Orithime. We get a number of upgraded items that should help us out, including a full set of iron armor, a hide shield, and a steel sword. Nothing special, but absolutely in line with what you can expect to have this early in the game. Unfortunately though, we absolutely cannot take on the bandit leader in this particular cave, since he dishes out way more damage than we can handle, so we'll have to come back later. We beat a hasty retreat and head back to the appropriately named Redoran's Retreat, which is actually the first cave we came across, but we couldn't find a way to get a weapon without getting spotted by this asshole dog, so we left. With our current kit, it's a relatively easy path to the end, though the bandit chief at the end spoils our good vibes a couple times until we manage to get past him with a well-timed mid-fight level up to heal and give us the time we need to take him out. At this point, I'm feeling like we should be ready to take on a couple main quests, so we head over to Whiterun and talk to the Jarl, who insults us by trying to give us Imperial armor that we obviously can't wear. After this, we head over to Bleak Falls Barrow, where we're looking for the Dragonstone. It seems like at this point we're going to be using one-handed weapons and shields, which is actually something I've never done before, because my typical Skyrim strategy is to dish out maximum damage as fast as possible, and just tank damage until I have to heal. For this run though, blocking is incredibly necessary since our healing options are quite limited, with all we have so far being some potato soup and other random ingredients. Bleak Falls Barrow itself goes as normal since our gear matches what you're expected to have for this part of the game, and we are able to use a stored level up to get past the one time we were in any real danger of dying. With the Dragonstone in hand, we emerge close to what appears to be a cave, though it is labeled a pass. Despite the cave icon on the map, I decide not to risk any angry commenters and move on. Somewhat nearby we happen across the Bloated Man's Grotto, which has a very angry Spriggan in it who messes us up real good, so we decide just to head back to Whiterun to turn in our quest. Next up in the main quest line is the first dragon fight, which we do manage to squeak by on our third attempt after using a mid-fight level up and most of our potato soup reserves. It's looking like we stand a good chance of being outclassed at some point soon, so that means it's time to go spelunking again. We're hoping to find some sort of spell or more reliable ranged weapon, something that can keep us out of harm's way. Healing of some sort would be lovely too, at the very least some potions we can stock up on, so there's more than just potatoes. First on our tour is White River Watch, which is filled with bandits who do provide us with a better shield and also more potatoes. Their leader is a douche though, and sits outside on a balcony, meaning we can't take any of his stuff. After this we find Grey Winter Watch, which is just completely not happening at this point, which brings us to Shimmer Mist Cave. There's a Falmer Gloomlurker inside waiting for us, who is far too much for us to handle, but before we get to them, we manage to score a staff of firebolts, a Falmer bow with a fair amount of arrows, and a shield that's better than the one we just picked up a couple caves ago. In Dark Shade, more trolls equals more running away, and that brings us to the most important place we've been to all run, Kronvanger Cave. This cave is full of spiders and vampires, with the large spider being killable only because it's allergic to cheese. After clearing the place out, we come away with an adorable spider pet, who we do get to keep because we found her in a cave, and best of all, fast healing. Now, this may be the only time since the game launched that anyone has ever gotten themselves gassed up over the fast healing spell, because it definitely sucks and is outclassed in effectiveness by the basic healing spell that you start with automatically, but it's our only sustainable source of healing, so we'll take what we can get. I'm hoping to avoid having the power level restoration to get it into an actually useful state, but that will be determined by the amount of trouble we run into later on and if we can upgrade our gear from the iron armor that we're currently using. Since we have reliable healing in hand, it's about time to get back to the main quest, after heading back to Ortheim and getting revenge on the bandit leader from earlier anyways. We received the summons from High Hrothgar, and on our way there we clear out Lost Knife Cave, which offers little of note except the spell tome for flames, along with Pine Peak Cavern and Honeystrand Cave, which both feature bears and largely useless loot, except for a pickaxe, which means that we can now mine some of the ore we've been finding in these caves, which could theoretically have some use in upgrading weapons. The most interesting thing that happens here is when we leave Honeystrand Cave briefly to heal, we glitch through the floor on our way back in. So far, so Skyrim. Which was interesting is that we wind up on some sort of subfloor and can actually manage to make our way back into the map without falling to our deaths and just reloading a save. As is tradition, of course, we then get absolutely pumped by the Frost Troll on our way up to High Hrothgar, then head out to get the Horn of Jurgen Windcaller. On the way there, we try clearing out Movarth's lair, but the Master Vampire is just too much for us to handle at this point, so we bookmark it for later and head back over to Ustengrav. This being an early game story quest, it naturally goes off without a hitch, so we meet with Delphine and head back up to see Arngeir with the Horn, who reacts completely normally to us standing over him while he sleeps. The Greybeards don't have anything else for us to do, so we head over to Kynes Grove with Delphine to investigate the dragon burial site. This dragon fight goes relatively smoothly, mostly because we have Delphine with us to draw aggro and keep us from getting attacked constantly. Once this is done, we notice the cave nearby on our compass and explore Crag Wallow Slope, which is just lousy with conjurers and a surprising amount of useful loot. We do have to take a level up inside to stay alive, and we opt to increase our healing abilities while we're at it, since that's been the bottleneck of the run so far. As far as loot goes, we find the Tome for Sparks and quite a few staffs, which can be useful situationally against melee foes, and more importantly the Spell Tome for Conjure Undying Ghost. This must be Anniversary Edition content. That's right, I upgraded since the last video, because I definitely don't remember this spell being in the game before. It does passable damage to enemies, but more importantly for now, it's relatively tanky, which lets us take less hits and stay alive longer. I also do say goodbye to my little spider buddy around here, because honestly, she just seems to get in the way in narrow cave tunnels, and has resulted in multiple avoidable deaths. With all of our new loot in hand, as well as our newly upgraded mace, thanks to a random steel ingot that I honestly don't remember picking up, we should be more than ready to begin the Thalore Embassy mission. With our new ghost pal helping us out, this goes pretty smoothly, and once we take out a bunch of Thalmor and find the information that we're looking for, we escape and pop out near a few more caves. So here's a quick little roundup of what we find. Ravenscar Hollow has some Hargraven and a very ungrateful naked man in a cage who drops a dwarven dagger. Shadowgreen Cavern is full of Spriggan who do a very good job at illustrating the difference in how fights go down with and without our summon at this point. We also find steel armor, and the fact that this is noteworthy goes to show how hard up we are for equipment at this point in the run. Broken Ore Grotto has Blackblood Marauders who are complete pushovers, but we do find some food and dwarven gauntlets inside. Brinewater Grotto has just some horkers and no loot, though I suspect this might be a secret exit for some other quest, since it absolutely refuses to show up as cleared on the map. Flush with all the success that we've been experiencing, we head back to clear out some of our previous failures. Greywinter Watch has a unique bow that damages stamina, which is kinda cool, but ultimately does half the damage of our Falmer bow, so it isn't very useful. Bloated Man's Grotto gives us Bolar's Oathblade, which besides having a super cool name, seems to be a pretty decent enchanted two-handed sword. Pity we spec'd into one-handed weapons already, because this is easily the best thing we've picked up. Movarth's Lair, though, gives us the best stuff. We get a necklace that increases our stamina by 30 points, which is nice, and Steel Plate Armor of the Knight, with a K, which is slightly less cool, I know. And this not only massively upgrades our defenses outright, but grants 15 points to our heavy armor skill while it's equipped. Yes, please. Oh, and Darkshade has absolutely nothing worth mentioning. With all that unfinished business taken care of, we head off to Rifton, and hopefully there will be some good spelunking to be done along the way. It's also around this point that I've decided our character compulsively explores caves, so we'll be investigating every single one that pops up on our radar, whether we need to or not. We almost make it from Ivarstead to Rifton without seeing any caves until we're right on the city outskirts when we find a couple. First is Crystal Drift Cave, where we find Gadnor and his last wishes, which we ignore completely. 3 wolves, and what is honestly probably the most quickly accessible shrine in the whole game, which I'll have to remember for the next time we get diseased. Grom's Pass has some goblins and Drax the Destroyer, plus a cool lightning staff, and Broken Helm Hollow is full of bandits, and we come away from here with only a slightly improved bow. After this, we arrive in Rifton and bring back Esbern, which is notable because for once his pathfinding doesn't screw up, and we bring him back to Riverwood with no trouble. With that done, we strike out for Karthspire and, surprising nobody, find some more caves. We'll speedround these since there are a bunch in a row. Mossmother Cavern, Spriggans and a bear, but no good loot. Sunderstone Gorge, Necromancers, Traps, and the Fire Breath Shout, so it's finally nice to have a usable shout in hand. Gloomreach, full of armor, and nothing else. In between, we also find the rather ironically named Frofnir Trollsbane, which isn't cave related, but I just thought it was funny. Anyway, Runoff Caverns. There's a lot going on in this one. We find a ring that boosts our blocking by 15%, boots that increase our stamina by 40%, a dwarven helmet that boosts bow damage by 25%, and a dwarven axe that drains stamina. Somewhere along the line though, this turns into a huge area that is clearly Creation Club content and promises to have some overpowered unique artifacts toward the end, so we just leave with the more standard loot that we've already picked up since we don't want some ridiculous artifact breaking the run if these items haven't already. We probably could have avoided this if we bothered to do any research. Reachcliff Cave has some Draugr, that's it. Reachwater Rock has a quest that we need the Ivory Claw for, which isn't found in a cave, so we can't continue on in. Red Eagle Redoubt is basically a passageway to a Forsworn fortress, but does count as a cave, so we pick up a Forsworn axe while we're inside in case we can upgrade it later. Rebel's Cairn has a weapon slot that we're supposed to put something in, but we don't have the weapon that it requires, and I suspect it may be the one from this pile of rocks out front that we can't pick up, so we finally move on into Karthspire itself. With Esbern and Delphine helping, Karthspire isn't much trouble at all, so we head on in and find out that we have to talk to the Greybeards, which is a place we've been before, so we might actually get an objective done without getting sidetracked for once. We talk to the Greybeards, who teach us how to yell at snow, and we do this repeatedly while killing some ice wraiths on our way up to meet Parthenax. After he gives us the info we need, it's time for what ought to be our last major hike of the game, from Moostengrave to Winterhold to learn the location of the Elder Scroll. Before we can get very far though, we get double teamed by dragons, which we absolutely cannot handle. We do a pretty good job at running away for a while though, until these buttholes, who seem completely unbothered by the dragons, by the way, come up and interrupt our fleeing just long enough to get us killed. Never change, Skyrim. Next attempt, and the game obviously has decided that we're going to do this, because both dragons spawn in again. This time around though, we managed to avoid the guys who got us killed last time by taking a slightly different route. We do manage to make it to Dawnstar, aka the most disappointing town this side of Morthal. My hope here is that we can enter a building and get the dragons to despawn so we can escape them and head off to Winterhold unmolested. Unfortunately, the disappointment that is Dawnstar never sleeps, and none of the houses are big enough load zones to unload the overworld and despawn the dragons, so we have to press on and hope that the guards will serve as a momentary distraction. It's also around here that we learn dragons can hit you underwater, which I'm not sure makes sense, but oh well. We do finally manage to come across our next cave, Ingvild, which is full of Draugr and ghosts, as well as this guy Arondil, who deals some major damage for just a random guy in a cave. We find a spell tome for Haunting Spirit, which we won't be using at all, and also some of the coolest looking clothing I've ever seen in this game, which unfortunately offers zero protection or secondary effect, which leaves us with nothing of use in this cave either, but at least the dragons are gone now. Next we stumble across Hobbs Fall cave, which is full of necromancers and has no notable items. This, by the way, is exactly why I decided to leave this run unresearched, since it does add some exploration and mystery to visiting these caves instead of just hitting up the 5 caves with all the items we want at the outset and coasting through the rest of the game like a normal playthrough but with a shittier healing spell. Or maybe with better healing spells? I genuinely don't know what there is to find in the caves I haven't explored. Anyway, we finally make it to Winterhold, where they put us on the trail of our boy Septimus. We leave Winterhold the fast way and make the short trek to his cave with ease. He sends us to Alftand, where we catch a glimpse of Bloodchill Cavern in the distance just as we're about to enter and make progress, so we're obligated to go check it out. This turns out to be a rather fancy cave, with a fake dinner party ambush thing going on, and the murderous waiter completely outclasses us to a degree that's not even funny. Sneak attacks, summons, and cheese all fail to take him down, alongside our attempt to lure him out into the world and get some help from a passing Imperial patrol. He laughs in the face of all that we try, so I eventually decide to just pack it in and head back to Alftand with my tail between my legs. What happens inside though is a glitch like none I've ever encountered in Skyrim, which should tell you that it's pretty weird. What's going on here is that a certain amount of time after entering the area, our HUD disappears like we're entering a cutscene or talking to an NPC, and both we and our enemies become frozen in place, unable to move or interact with anything, and we're soft locked into an idle state. At first I thought this was being triggered by enemy spawns, since that seemed to be where it was happening, but after trying to whirlwind sprint past some spawns and avoid seeing them pop in, it became apparent that it was time-based. Reloading a save from the beginning of the dungeon and trying to speedrun our way through didn't get us anywhere near the end, and it wasn't until I tried to glitch my way into Blackreach through the elevator that I realized it wasn't actually tied to Alftan at all. As best as I can figure, this is somehow related to what happened in Bloodchill Cavern, since evidently that waiter kicked our ass so hard that it literally broke the game. So I reloaded my most recent actual save, which unfortunately is back at Winterhold, and head into Alftan without checking out Bloodchill Cavern at all, and that does seem to have fixed things. We managed to get through and get the Elder Scroll like you would on a normal playthrough, though it was significantly more tense on account of the fact that I spent the whole time petrified that the glitch would return and lock me out of finishing the run. It doesn't happen though, so we leave Septimus hanging and head back up to the Throat of the World to read the scroll and learn Dragonrend. This section of the game culminates in the first fight against Alduin, which is the last true challenge of the game, and to be honest, it goes pretty darn smoothly. Things get a touch dicey when he starts raining fireballs down all over us, and he does manage to fly off because of the well-known issue that's been happening since 2011, where occasionally your character will just make a noise and not actually shout, leaving you on an invisible cooldown. But even so, we managed to get him grounded again and finish him off without too much issue. This means it's time for the Peace Council, also known as watch a YouTube video on your phone and occasionally press X time. This sets us on our way for the final couple objectives of the game, and if you've ever played this game before, then you know that this is realistically just a victory lap, and there's no real challenge left if you manage to defeat Alduin at the Throat of the World. With that in mind, forgive me while I breeze through capturing Odahviing, fighting through Skuldafn, and getting into Sovngarde, since there's nothing we do here that we haven't been doing for ages already, just swinging our axe and healing when our health starts to run low. Remember back at the beginning when I said blocking was going to be important? It wasn't. As always, the second fight with Alduin is easier than the first, so we land the final blow and absorb his soul, proving that yes, you can beat Skyrim with only items that you scavenge out of random caves. I did notice at this point too that I have a whole lot of potions that I was completely ignoring on account of not thinking that I had enough to rely on, so let's take those in our final level up and go see if we can't take out that waiter. Nope, not even close. Well, that was a fun one, and if you know of any caves that have items I could have used to make the run easier, let me know in the comments. I think with the damage and protection we managed to put together, we would have been able to beat the game anyway, with some actual skill and a bit more cheese, but getting access to a healing spell really made the challenge take a lot less time. Before I picked it up, I'd been contemplating having to power level block to the point where I'd get that 50% elemental damage resistance perk just to stand a chance against dragons in the late game, but having some consistent healing really made a huge difference. Even the worst healing spell in the game is still way better than no healing spell, and honestly because of it the game played out pretty much like normal towards the end. I hope it was still interesting to see it come together over the course of the run though, and all told we explored 33 caves on our way through the game, many of which I've walked right past in previous playthroughs, and I'm sure some of you have too. If you liked the video and want to keep up to date on what's coming next, make sure to subscribe and give it a like if you think I deserve it. Also, maybe check out my Patreon or channel memberships if you think I deserve a little extra money, but no pressure, I just always appreciate people making it to the end of the video. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.